Hi, my name's Phil Holmes. The background to the scenario work which we undertook at Atlantic Lottery had a few different starting points. The first was that when I started a new role with a new company, then I expected the industry to have a better sense of where the industry was going. You know, the industry is worth several $100 billion, and I expected the industry to have a greater sense, rather than just a general direction that's somewhere online, to have a broader sense of where the industry itself was going to go. And I didn't find there was enough insight into that. And that was the first point. The second point then was really, for us as an organisation, to engage our shareholders in dialogue. Sometimes talking about the future can be quite scary, it can be quite unpredictable, you're not quite sure. But in order to make the right levels of investment and so on, we needed to bring our shareholders with us. So talking about how the future might develop from 4 different perspectives, and that's what we do in the scenario. We tell 4 different stories of how the future might play out. And the reality is that no one future will play itself out in its entirety, but a mixture of those will. And it's a great way to engage shareholders who can be, from politicians through to industry people and so on, can be a broad mix of that, to get them all onto the same page, at least understand what the issues and so on are. So that was the reason why we embarked on the journey in the first place. The scenario building process really has 8 distinct stages. I'll not go through all of them, but in essence what you have to do is start off with what we call the framing question. So the framing question for us was, what might the lottery and gaming industry look like in 2030? So we had to cast our minds further out in order to get the right level of what we call imagineering. So can we cast our minds further out? What might be the things which happen now, and how would they play themselves out in the future? So we look at the trajectory and the velocity of a number of different variables happening in the gaming and gambling industry. And once we understand how those things might play themselves out, you can project them forward 10 or 20 years. And then the key is to weave them back together in a way that allows you to tell a story of the future. So that's the whole intent of the scenario process. Once you understand what the question is, then you look at the data underpinning that. You look at what are the things which are certain versus the things which are uncertain. Then from that, you're understanding, what is it critical you need to get, you need to understand as an organisation. Then you build those into a scenario framework, and then you begin to analyse what the implications might be should it play out. And the last step would be really to include what we call early warning indicators. So the early warning indicators allow you to understand which scenario is playing out more quickly than the others. So the scenarios we developed at Atlantic Lottery, one's called intrusion, really based on a level of fear and people really not adopting technology at the rate where we believed they might, primarily based on some of the issues you have around security, identity theft, data compromises, and in order to successfully get over that or to avoid that, then you have to do build encryption into devices and those kind of things, which significantly slows the performance. So we talk in the scenario there of not just devices slowing down considerably. So whilst we've got smartphones now, most people don't use a lot of the functionality on their smartphones. If you have data compromises where your data is being ransomed, where your data is being encrypted, and you're having to pay to have those things unlocked, which is what's happening in the industry at the moment, then people we believe could potentially become fed up with that. And as a result of that, then they begin to disengage or look for simpler technology which is more in tune with their lifestyle. So that's the intrusion scenario. The second scenario is circumvention. And the circumvention scenario really talks about 2 worlds in collision. One is where you have the legislators moving at one pace, trying to legislate for gaming and gambling, and that pace being significantly different from the pace of the market, which is moving much more quickly, much more dynamic. So when you have the legislator moving at one pace and the market moving at another, then you have the potential to circumvent. And that's what's happening significantly, not just in the gaming industry, but across all industries, where legislation, you have the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. And we tell a story of how that can potentially play itself out. That's kind of the environment a lot of jurisdictions are in at the moment. The third scenario is one we call immersion. And the immersion scenario is kind of the future that science fiction writers have long foretold. It really is based on a lot of augmented reality. It is about autonomous vehicles. It is about heads-up displays. It is what we call fully immersive gaming and fully immersive gamification, and how those things blend into our lives seamlessly based on quantum computing platforms and based on then our ability as players to engage with the products in a seamless kind of a way. So immersion is about how gaming informs and forms part of every single part of our life. And the last scenario is collaboration. And collaboration is really about two perspectives on that. One is proactive collaboration, where we see the industry being driven by levels of mergers and acquisitions. So proactive collaboration, organisations seeing an opportunity and investing ahead of the curve to gain critical mass, particularly in players. On the other side, you have then reactive collaboration, which is unfortunately what you'll find with a lot of regulated suppliers, regulated providers who are forced to try and collaborate to provide economies of scale and efficiencies. It's not about what scenario will win, because the reality is that each scenario will play itself out to a certain extent. No one scenario will play itself out in its entirety. So what's interesting is how you understand which one is becoming more dominant. And our belief is that, at least at Atlantic Lottery, our belief is that in the immersion scenario will be the one which is the most dominant. It's the one which is going to drive the industry. It's the one where you're going to find players adopting technologies, using the technologies, integrating that technology into their lives. And as a result of that, you'll see collaborations of many different shapes and forms, some of which we wouldn't even begin to imagine at this moment in time. From competitors external to the industry, we think will have a significant disruption to the industry. So I think immersion will be the long-term dominant scenario. You know, we believe that it's useful to engage the industry in a broader dialogue. And we've been fortunate enough, when we talked about our scenario and our scenario process, that the people at Clarion Events were keen to recognise the potential of that and to engage the industry in a broader dialogue. So we wanted to sort of join forces, in essence, to provide the kind of critical thinking we've supplied at Atlantic Lottery and through our consulting practice at Atlantic Lottery to then also link with Clarion Events. So the intention is then is for us to take the thinking that we've developed here. There is a framework we put around organise the complexity around the future. So we have sort of 12 different streams that we look at, and the intent is to work and partner with Clarion Events, who will put a kind of back-end platform, which will be discussion groups and so on at the back end of this. And that will allow us to then engage the broader industry. So we wanted to start the conversation, and we want the industry to continue the dialogue as we move forward based on these sort of 12 different streams. So if you're interested in products specifically, then engage in that stream. If you're interested in legislation or regulation or governance or players or technology, then engage in those streams. We're interested in your ideas, your thoughts, your data points, your predictions. And the intent is then for us to take that, work with the people at Clarion Events, starting here at EIG, moving, and we're going to take the output we get from the EIG using the online platform, and we're going to morph that into presenting an update to that at ICE in February. And we're going to repeat the process there and give the people at ICE a chance to contribute to the discussion. And then we're going to present the same, update that and present the updated findings to GIGSY in the summer of next year. Well, people can find out more if they go to totallygaming.com. The presentations from EIG, the outputs, the documentation and so on around that is going to be hosted on totallygaming.com. So if you go there, you should be able to find out, what we're doing, how it's going to play out, and some of the presentations from this session, and we'll continue to keep that platform updated as the industry's thoughts develop over time.